this is so important. I'm glad you asked me
Yeah,
this,
yeah.
because this is what I love to talk about.
Yeah.
So science and research tells us there's a critical window of the first 1,001 days from conception to 2. And so when I said I'm giving up, 7 years studying at law school to teach baby massage, there's a few little eyebrows raised about that, because I knew that the corporate finance wasn't going to suit me, but not in a million years would I have picked up being a baby massage instructor. And I couldn't have possibly seen now having a global community like impacting millions of babies every day. You've got to have a culture that is infused with your values, so that the surrounding environment that you've created is also authentic. And people and team, they can either make or break your business. So I love my team. I value my team. I really celebrate my team, because without them, we wouldn't be able to scale and do what we do. My mission is to reach millions of babies. Now, if I don't have people in the family who are feeling supported, they can't support parents who support babies. What do you consider to be success or wealth? So for me, like with my Love Millions business, my wealth is connection, it's community, it's care, it's relationships. So wealth of relationships is what gives me joy. Honouring yourself, your mission, and really working out what wealth means to you. Like, social isolation is one of the most damaging things to our mental health. Challenging times personally. I was married for 23 years. I got divorced about 3.5, 4 years ago now. That was very challenging because of my values and my family. 100%. You just got to start at the beginning. You get a new chance with every 380,000 babies born every day. That's humanity renewing itself. We've got the best chance in the world. You've got hope right there.
If you were on your deathbed and you could leave one lesson, what would that be?
So love everyone and be authentic, tell the truth, and then you're always centred in your values.
I'm on a mission to help the world to see success differently. Through sharing the stories of our guests, I hope to inspire those that listen. This is the Different Hats podcast, produced by H2 Productions. I hope you can join us on this journey. Okay, I'm just going to say something about one of our sponsors, Riverval. The world of cars, vans and minibuses is often a pain point for many of us. The hassle of finding the right vehicle, let alone looking after it, are all more things to add to our lists as busy people. Riverval's mission is to make motoring manageable, and that's why they provide leasing, purchasing, servicing and vehicle management. So whether you have one family car or a fleet of vans for your business, Riverval are your trusted vehicle supplier. Visit www.riverval.co.uk. Okay, let's jump back to the podcast. Okay, welcome to another episode of the podcast. Today I'm truly honoured to be joined by an entrepreneur and business leader who has built a global community with the belief that love creates love. She's the founder of Blossom & Berry and has a global mission to save the world one baby at a time. I'm delighted to welcome the one and only Gayle Berry to the podcast. Gayle, how are you?
Well, I'm very impressed by that introduction. I'm just soaking all of that up. Thank you.
Well, I should have obviously put in there, because obviously we met at TEDx, so a TEDx
did.
speaker as well,
We did, yeah.
which was incredible. Only obviously a couple of weeks ago when
Absolutely.
we filmed it, and a great experience.
Yeah, totally loved it. I mean, it was a great honour and a privilege to be able to do it, but the feeling of stepping up and sharing my message like that, it's still giving me the tingles.
I bet. It was
one of the kind of great moments for sure in my career.
And it was such obviously you've got a huge mission and it's such a powerful message that you share, which is incredible. And yeah, it was 1,300 people or whatever in the dome on that day, and I was lucky enough to be there and see it. And it was so brilliant. Everyone's talk throughout the day was fantastic, and I really enjoyed it. So it's awesome. Well, look, I'm really honoured to have you on, and delighted that we're going to kick off as we do every time. I'm a strong believer that everyone's story starts somewhere right at the beginning. I like to go back to that, and something about just to give me a little insight into something about your childhood, something about growing up that sort of shaped who sits in front of me today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as you know, that's my kind of message, is that what happens to us at the beginning really informs who we become and what happens to us at the end. So, well, I mean, my childhood, I grew up in London. I had a happy childhood. I was a little bit of a quirky child, I've got to be honest. I kind of spent a lot of time in my bedroom creating and sharing. I love to share things, particularly with my mum. And I realised recently that's pretty much kind of what I still do, because what I absolutely love is to create things and share them. It's the thing that gives me the most joy. So when I was young, very sort of young, but before secondary school, I spent a lot of time doing that. Went to my secondary school and then had a little bit of a challenging time. I was quite badly bullied because I went to my school was a bit like Grange Hill, which anyone who's over sort of like 45 will know what that means. It was a bit of it was a bit of a rough comprehensive. And I absolutely loved learning, and so I really stood out like a sore thumb, and so I attracted quite a lot of attention in the wrong way. And all joking aside, it did cause me a lot of stress. And for someone who loves school, I ended up sort of bunking off school and not going to school because I was scared. And for a while, that really held me back. I didn't used to like to be in groups. The people that were bullying me were mainly girls, so I had a bit of a kind of fear around female groups. The irony being that I now have a community of over 2,000 women across the world. So, wow. I think these early things are preparing us. Yeah. They're giving us the resilience to be able to do what happens later on in life. Yeah. So secondary school was a little bit of a kind of funny one. And then I ended up going to Warwick University to study law, which I ended up really doing because no one in my family had ever been to university. I had really good grades, and I didn't really have the confidence to go for what I wanted to do, which was something creative. And so my teachers and my parents said, do law because it's a good career, all of those things. So I ended up doing a law degree, kind of not quite knowing why, but doing it anyway. And quite quickly into it, I realised that wasn't going to be my dharma, that wasn't my passion. But I was lucky enough that as I was academic, I got through that and I got really good grades and everything, and ended up from that point becoming a lawyer and working as a corporate finance lawyer in the city for a couple of years. So my background to becoming an entrepreneur was a lot of lessons about honouring yourself and believing in yourself through actually giving my power away. And abandoning myself. And it was only when I sort of later on had my children and became an entrepreneur, I suddenly realised, wow, okay, yeah, there was a lot of growth going on there for me.
It's really interesting. I often talk about, I guess, on here about the education system and trying to find. I've got twins who are nearly 9, and I'll try and talk to them all the time about finding what their passion is, as opposed to not always necessarily what they're really good at or whatever, but what they love doing. And there's so, like, listening to you talk there, I guess you're very academic, so that's a route that you can go down, but not really necessarily following your passion, really, which was obviously the creative side. So I guess through your entrepreneurial journey, I guess with your kids, you've encouraged them in a different way, I'm assuming.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I would describe myself as a bit of a creative maverick. That's how I like to see myself.
Love that.
So I now I've got out of kind of like the system and I found that freedom. Now I'm a great believer in, you've just got to do what you're here to do. You've got to listen to your heart and you've got to honour your gifts and you've got to realise that you are the medicine that the world is waiting for. So with my kids, I am definitely that mum that all along was like, even with things like homework, I'd be like, do you want to do your homework? No, I want to go outside and play, in the garden. I want to play football. I'd be like, okay, you go do that now. We know that's got to happen at some point, but you choose. So it's that empowerment of freedom. And I think that's what I love about being an entrepreneur. Like, I'm completely unemployable by anybody because I'm just like, Yeah, no, I will absolutely do that, and I will do it to the best of my ability, but it will be in the precise moment when I know now is the time for me to do that.
It's so strange that the amount of people that have sat opposite me, and me, I've been running my own business for probably 15, 16 years now, and exactly that I've always promised my wife, always said to her, look, if ever it didn't work out and I needed to put food on the table, I'd go and drive an Asda van if I needed to, or whatever it would take. But thankfully I've not had to go down that route.
Yeah.
But because I do just believe that I am unemployed, I will go out and I'll find a way. Because as entrepreneurs, we find solutions, right?
Yeah, and I think it's that we see. I think entrepreneurs see opportunities in all kinds of different things. So, even if you were driving the Asda van, you'd be doing it with a smile and thinking, how can I make this a better experience for myself and somebody else? Because I think that's what entrepreneurs really thrive at, is seeing how to make the world a better place. And this is something I try and talk about entrepreneurship as a force for good. It's not just being part of a capitalistic system or earning money or transactional, it's relational. And that's really important to me.
Yeah, I love that. I want to go back if we can, go back to that period, I guess, at school. From a resilience point of view, you mentioned resilience, which is such a valuable skill to have as an entrepreneur. I guess we need that a lot, right? But I guess that period of being bullied in that tough period, what helped you get through that, do you think? I
think, to be honest, I just surrendered to it. I was not brave enough to go and ask for help or anything like that. I mean, this was like back in, the late 80s, early 90s. So, you didn't have your kind of your buddy chum like you do now. I mean, it's amazing what schools have recognised around bullying. So I think I just... it was not a good thing. I decided to just disappear. I just decided to kind of shrink for a bit. And then that did profoundly affect me for quite a long time. And it was when the thing that really changed it up was when I had my own kids. Because it was at that moment that I thought, I've got these, my daughter's eyes are now watching me. Like, I am her teacher. I am her environment. So this is where... whatever's happened before, now I really got to honour and be authentic. And that's something that I really teach in my classes and through my courses, which is you've just got to be you. The more you know yourself, the more authentic you are with yourself, the greater, the deeper the connection you can make with somebody else. So I think it didn't happen. It was a long time. It was a long time. And I think possibly the reason why I ended up in law and I didn't sort of say, hey, I really don't want to do this, is because of that process of just sort of going, yes, please, I'll be the good girl. I'll do all the things, because I didn't want to have that experience again. So, yeah. Yeah.
That's interesting. I listen to what you said now about authenticity, and it's such a... there's that amazing book, I'm not sure, I've referenced it on here quite a bit. I don't know if you've read it, but Bronnie Ware, the top 5 regrets of the dying.
No.
And she was a palliative nurse, and speaking to the people who were dying on their deathbed, the biggest regret out of the 5 was that I've not lived a life true to myself. And that's such a... listening to you talk is such a valuable realisation, I guess, when you get to that point and going, actually, I'm not living a life that aligns with my values, maybe, or who I am as an individual. Once you find that, joy and happiness and fulfillment can come from that, I guess. Right?
Yeah. I think entrepreneurship is an extension of, yourself. So that's why, for me, it's art. Entrepreneurship is art because it is my artistry in service. I'm taking what I love, which is authentically who I am, and I'm offering myself to the world and saying, this is what I can give you. And then I believe that the right people are then come into alignment, and then that creates flow. So I'm not really a kind of, digital funnel systems structure kind of girl. I'm more of a be more of who you are and believe that is actually, you're more than enough. You can magnetize people to you through your message and your mission and your values.
Yeah, I love that. And it talk to us about, because you again alluded it to a little bit there, that I guess that turning point into your entrepreneurial journey, because you did, like you said, you went down a route that was maybe planned more for you than what you decided to choose. Corporate lawyer for a couple of years, and then you got pregnant at about 26. Is that right? And then and that was the turning point for you.
Definitely. So I had a happy accident when I was traveling in Peru. Wasn't intending to have a baby, so I think I'd been married about 6 months at the time, and I just as soon as I was pregnant, I just realised the responsibility and the joy of being a parent, and so I wanted to align myself to my truth, really, because it's a long time with a very special relationship like that with your child, to be anything other than who you are. You're going to waste a lot of energy. It's just not going to be a true authentic connection, which I think what love is. That's what love is truth. So that meant that when I had Emily, I was like, well, what is the most important thing to me? For me, it was being at home with her. So I knew that corporate, I didn't like being a corporate finance lawyer anyway, but I knew that was absolutely not going to align. So I just had to dive into my business, which at the time, literally everyone thought I was nuts. Obviously now I've it's kind of more accepted what I do, like infant massage and helping with bonding and love and connection. But 23 years ago even, that was a little bit out there. And so when I said I'm giving up 7 years studying at law school to teach baby massage, there's a few little eyebrows raised about that. But and I would never have, this is the thing as well, is like the whole thing about entrepreneurship is this leap of faith, because I knew that the corporate finance wasn't going to suit me, but not in a million years would I have picked up being a baby massage instructor. And I couldn't have possibly seen now having a global community, like impacting millions of babies every day. But it was just that, this could be interesting. Let's be curious about this. This kind of aligns at the moment with having a business, being with my daughter, helping other parents, doing what I love. Let's just open the door and see what happens.
Wow, there's so much to take. So I guess that point was almost like, so you've gone from corporate law. There was never, prior to that, was there anything inside that thought, I'm going to start my own business one day? Nothing like that at all. So it was more, I want to spend more time. I want to spend as much time with my daughter as possible.
Yeah. I definitely believe my daughter is my soulmate.
Wow.
I think that she came to, I'm going to get all emotional. She came to, show me a different way, because I was not enjoying the, crazy project finance lawyer hours. It was literally you go home when it's done. So it's like 2 a.m, taxis come in, 6 a.m. It was completely not sustainable, and it was totally not me. I was completely inauthentic. I actually had a really bad blushing complex where I would just go bright red when anyone would ask me a question, which is just the irony, because now I'm on a TEDx stage. I have my own podcast, I do brand work, I'm a teacher, I hold space for people. So it's just so fascinating about how life can be so hard when you're not aligned, and how it can be so much more easeful when you are. You just got to be brave.
And I guess it's trying to find that. I guess it's identifying what your values, purpose, mission, or purpose generally, what that is, what you find, and trying to seek out what that is and how that aligns with your. I think what I find really fascinating with this subject is something like, sometimes people go, you've got to try and find this passion or find this purpose, and actually it's not necessarily assigning it to a certain job or a certain business or whatever, but as I feel like that it's more that these are my values and what I believe in, and I'm going to create something that aligns with them. Would that be right, mate?
Definitely. Well, I am a multi-passionate entrepreneur, so I've like you, I have several businesses. So I have my mentorship business, which is Love Millions, which is about, again, like impacting the world with love. So when people think of Love Millions, you might be thinking of rubbing your hands together, like counting all your money. For me, loving millions is loving millions of people, like impact wise. So I have that business, and then I'm a charity founder, and I have a new kind of parent and baby business that I've just started called Nurture Harmonics. So all through all of those is my main passion, which is love and care, connection, community, much like we were talking about before, we came on here today. So it's sort of like the manifestation of that, that's my song, if you like, and then I sing it through different like mediums of business and in relationships as well. So
I love and it's strange. I think once you've, because then by aligning with your value, you're not, like I say, you're not then defined by one thing. So I think it was Dr. Rangan Chatterjee, he talks about it on his podcast, Feel Better, Live More, and he said along the lines like, if I'm a doctor and I'm defined as a doctor, what happens when I'm not a doctor anymore, or you're not? Whereas exactly what you're sort of saying, he's a podcast host now as well, he's still a doctor and he does X, Y and Z, and like you say, we wear different hats and we do different things, but actually if all of those things align with what values we are, again back to that word of authenticity, we're living a life true to ourselves, which is what we're all searching for, all trying to get to, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think like truth and love are very the same, like it just is. There's just an acceptance of this is who I am, and actually when you truly believe in who you are, I think that builds resilience in entrepreneurship, because I'm like, well, no matter what happens, I'm in my values. So if that doesn't quite activate, or if that project doesn't happen, as long as I'm still in my values, I'm okay with that, and I can just let that go. So it's sort of like a state of mind where you're anchored, rooted. And I think in entrepreneurship, to be honest, you've got to be like that for the long term. Like I've been 20 years in business, very similar to you. Otherwise, when the wind comes, if you don't have that anchor, you can get blown around, and then that can be really difficult,
Because it's tough. Being a business owner is tough, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is. I think it's challenging in terms of it's a vehicle for massive growth. Because every day you get up and you're like every department in the business, and ultimately, even if you've got a team, still it kind of you are leading. So having, then when you become a leader like I am now, when I've got a team, you've got to have a culture that is infused with your values, so that the surrounding environment that you've created is also authentic. And people and team, they can either make or break your business. So I love my team. I value my team. I really celebrate my team, because without them, we wouldn't be able to scale and do what we do.
Yeah, that's such again, culture is a big thing. My first business was a hair salon. Part of the Tony and Guy. I think I'll talk about it here a bit, because one of the reasons I think it failed, because I got the culture wrong. I went in as my first business and I went in as a boss and not a leader. And I think you go in and, like I say, massive learning curve. Failed, I had to close it, lost money, but you learn so much from your failures, obviously. But I'd be really keen to talk to me a little bit about the culture I guess you've created there. How did you go about that, and was it from your values you knew that was what was going to happen to build that team?
Well, I think I have a very unusual business model in my main business, Blossom and Berry. So it's based on kind of unconditional love, which is quite a little bit out there. I'm not sure how many businesses have that. So basically, I train people to hold space for parents and babies, and we teach baby massage, baby yoga, nature connection. It's all about creating loving, nurturing bonds between parents and babies, because as you know from my TED talk, that's how we create potential. In every human being's got amazing potential, but we need to nurture it. So I decided to create not a training school where you just get a certificate, not a franchise or a licensed business where, I'm sort of like McDonald's of baby massage, if you like, and there's not a lot of creativity and control. There's more control. I just have come and train with me, and you are in my family forever. So I have got students with me, teachers with me from 15 years ago, who are still receiving monthly mentorship from me, socials, collaborations, and for me, that's because my mission is to reach millions of babies. Now, if I don't have people in the family who are feeling supported. They can't support parents who support babies. So for me, I'm like the mother tree. You know, I don't know if you know about the documentary The Mother Tree is like the tree in the forest that has these roots that go out mycelium, and then they can see, okay, this tree over there needs a little bit of help, this tree needs a little bit of help, and then redirects their resources to where it needs to go. So Blossom and Berry is a bit like that. So we say, what do you need? Not like, this is what we're going to give you. And then we respond in that way. And subsequently, you know, we have a lot of teachers. We have 2,000 teachers. But I wouldn't be able to do anything. Like, that's the point. I wouldn't be on that wouldn't have been on that TEDx stage. I wouldn't be able to tell the story of my business if it hadn't been for my teachers. So that's why my teachers and my team who support my teachers are central, because that's the ecosystem in which the whole thing breathes.
I guess that's still got a... This is still, I guess, come from your initial vision and mission, and I guess from a leadership point of view, coming from, because like you said, you've got all these teachers that are leaders in their own right, I guess, to a degree, but all aligning with the similar values and mission of the business. I guess that's the. But from your point of view, as a where do you think? Talk to me about leadership. Where do you think these leadership skills come from? What do you think makes a great leadership?
Well, I talk about nurturing leadership. So there's lots of, there's servant leadership, all the different styles. So nurturing leadership is what I embody and teach and offer my clients when I mentor them, because it goes back to babies again. So, a business is in essence like a baby. So it's a seed of potential. You've got to nurture it. You've got to be with it. You've got to listen to what it needs. You've got to give it what it needs. You've got to be present there, and you've got to be kind of humble and just keep listening and keep learning and keep growing together, like in synergy. Because if your energy is a little bit off as a leader, that's directly reflected in your business. That's what I found. So your business is like a mirror, a little bit like children are our greatest teachers and our mirrors as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I think I just took what I learned as a parent, which is most definitely the biggest learning curve, and then I embedded that into my leadership style. And I do like to have family values, So yeah.
I love it, and your whole message around leading with love. That's I guess so much, especially we go back to the 80s, 90s. The leadership was certainly not along them. I mean, you've still got the Alan Sugar, you're fired on there, and that type of leadership.
Mine's you're loved. You're not fired.
I love it.
You're loved.
You're loved. But do you think, like, as a society, we're moving more to that way of leadership? Do you think more in the business world that we're those type of empathy and love, they're the type of values that make a great leader, and that's coming more into the business world now? Or
I think it's love is the most strong medicine for everything. So with the way that basically we're responding to our customers and our clients and our team, and I think that people generally are feeling the strain. I think people are feeling burnt out, overwhelmed. Like I said in my talk, mental health issues are costing the NHS £16 billion a year. I mean, you can't ignore that. That's a fact of how much of the budget is going there. So what are we going to do about that? Are we going to keep saying work harder, or are we going to start to try to restructure our businesses around the fact that this is the environment now? We've kind of created that environment. I don't quite know exactly how it crept up on us, but it kind of has. So I feel like, care, compassion, connection, community, these are all the things that actually make us feel good. When we feel good, we've got more energy, we want to be at work, we want to contribute more. So depleting anything, we know what happens. It's not a good sustainable way to run a business.
I agree. I think, for me, there's been a couple of the things I take out from what you said, especially about your values and love, empathy, authenticity, those type. I think especially since COVID, community and connection realised how important that was. It was taken from us, and I think as I'm very much a people person. I get energy from people, and I love being around people. I host events with people. So when that was taken away, I think I keen to what you think, especially within your business, that craving more for connection and community is enhanced. Do you think since COVID?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think COVID. I mean, I've often say to people, whatever happened in COVID's doesn't count. No. Because it was just like what
that was no one's business plan, right?
But one thing that is connected to that came out of COVID for me was, prior to COVID, I was focusing very much on nurturing parent and baby relationships through somatics. So somatics being breath, yoga, massage, nurturing touch. Then, because we couldn't gather inside, I was in nature a lot. I love nature. It's part of my lifestyle. And then I realised that. Why are we not holding space for parents and babies outside in nature? Why do we automatically assume that babies want to be, lying on plastic mats with plastic toys, looking up at, strip lights, with their parents sitting on plastic chairs, drinking plastic food out of, eating plastic food off plastic plates as an extreme. I have been to places that feel like that. Why don't we get outside in nature? Because nature holds us, and we know from science that it really supports our well-being, and it naturally provides that connection. So I created Tree Babies, got parents outside in nature, and what we found is that everyone just dropped much more into their hearts and their bodies. So rather than sort of sitting around kind of thinking, I should go and talk to someone, you're in nature, so straight away you're like, oh wow, look at that, hear that bird. It's just a natural kind of relaxation that happens when we're outside in nature, because it's our natural environment. We are nature. So for me, COVID actually provided that opportunity to completely pivot my business into now nature work. So we do wild well-being for parents and babies. Wow. So it was almost like I'd been doing nurture for, 15 years. It was almost like COVID came to say to me, and by the way, the other thing that you need to be looking at with parents and babies is getting them outside, getting them connected to nature, because nature is actually going to support all of us in the next, forever. It's here for us, So it was interesting, and those classes, we have 300 teachers now. Those classes are really popular. Wow. Because I think they just make us more human. They reduce us down to our common denominator, which is, I'm a human just trying to do my best, and it's messy, and it looks like this some days, it looks like that some days, keeping it real.
And it was homeschooling and all of that come with the messiness of COVID. But it certainly, from a nature point of view, it really did, didn't it? I'm so lucky to live where we do here in Brighton, and I could go up on the downs for the walk, or we'd go down the seafront and walk along I love the sea, so I'll swim in the sea, and that's my happy place, and you go there. But just being able to, I think, like you said, COVID almost gave us permission to stop for a bit. As much as the stresses of running a business or owning a business come with that, it did enable us to stop, and actually, you're right, just be in nature and be able to go having that time with my twins. They were 5 at the time, I guess. Then walking around and being taking them up on the downs, taking them down to the beach, and having that walk on the seafront was magical, and a great bonding period for us as a family, I guess. And so being an optimist, I always try and take the positives out of the situation. As terrible as COVID could have been, I look back at it actually as a fond period of time, really, I guess.
Yeah, I think one of the great gifts of nature, which can apply to entrepreneurship, is this sort of seasons and the cyclical nature of everything. Yeah, sure. Knowing, that this too shall pass, whatever you're in, this too shall pass. Yeah. you put seeds in the ground, they take a while to come up, but if you looked after them, they normally come good, you know. So there are all these things in nature which for me as an entrepreneur just really ground me and make me realize that I'm part of this. I'm not separate to nature. I'm just creating within this kind of unified force of nature. And it's okay in winter to not do as much, and you know, it's great in the summer to maybe when you've got more energy to do more. And so I think it's this idea that we should all be on 24/7, like 365. Like as an entrepreneur, you would simply burn out. Like you have to honor your energy as an entrepreneur, because that's where everything's coming from.
You're so right, but it's such look. There's so much social media and all of that, like this hustle culture that we should be productive, you know, 24 hours a day, and if you haven't got time to stop, you've got to be on the go. And I certainly, I would say I'd subscribe to that for a long period of time. You almost wear, you know, your busyness is a badge of honour. It's like this, and we've got this culture here where, you know, look, and you be at a networking event and someone say, "Oh, how are you getting?" "Oh, yeah, so busy." You know, it's like this badge of honour. Actually, as I've got a bit older, certainly from these type of conversations, that you start to learn and you go, actually, it's so important to take a step back to look after ourselves. And self-care is, I'm still not great here, I'm still on a journey to get better, but it's such an important message, I think, to get out there, that we've got to look after ourselves to be the best version of ourselves, to be a good business person, to be a good parent, right? Yeah.
I mean, I think that a lot of entrepreneurs do burn out because we're not doing the marathon, you know, we're doing 100 meters, and I don't know, I've never felt like that, because I think I had my business and my children at exactly the same time. So the reason why I created my business was to be in harmony with my children. So therefore, if I had been like an overnight success, if I had been as successful as I am now when my children were young, I would have, you know, not had that experience with my children. And so my business and my children grew at exactly the same rate, whereas now they're in their 20s. You know, I'm hot disking around the world, living my best life, running my businesses with the full presence, because they've actually got to the point where, of course, I'm still there for them as their mum, but they're really super independent as well. Whereas when they were 5, you know, what I wanted to do was have all the school holidays with them. So naturally for me, I was like, well, I don't do anything for 6 weeks between, you know, July and August, and I just basically didn't. So I think I've had that approach for a long time, which is maybe why, you know, 20 years in business is quite a long time doing the same thing. I think that's possibly why, because I've paced myself, you know.
It's really good. Well, I'd be keen to delve into that a little bit as well. Like, what advice would you give if your kids wanted to get into business, if whether they took over yours or they went into and wanted to start their own business? Advice would you give to people for that? Because that is because I think, especially when you start a business, maybe you have these ideas, I'm going to go out, and so you go, I've got to be on it all of the time, and then you hope to get to a stage where maybe you then can take a bit of a backseat and overview, and then you create more time for yourself, whereas almost like you've done the reverse of that. You've been able to, you know what, I'm gonna start this business, but I'm gonna do it 100% on my terms, and create your business to work around your life. What advice would you give someone looking to start a business, maybe a young parent or just a young person looking to start a business, that they would go, actually, these are some really good values that you'd start out with?
Well, I think first of all, like with my particular business, it wouldn't have been congruent, would it, to having a business which is all about spending time with your children and then not spending time with your children. So that's what I'm talking about, authenticity again. So if I had grown my business to be so successful that I then had a team of nannies to look after my children, that wouldn't be my message. So I think it really depends on the truth of your business and your values, and also what do you consider to be success or wealth. So for me, like with my Love Millions business, my wealth is connection, is community, it's care, it's relationships. So wealth of relationships is what gives me joy. And I believe that if you nurture that, everything else actually comes from that. You know, as you know, in networking, you just have, all you need to do is go to one meeting. There just could be that perfect person who's been looking for you and you've been looking for them. So I think what I would say to people is, get aligned with your values, and you're always anchored. You know, like I say, you just believe that in time it will evolve. And all you need to keep doing is holding on to that vision, which mine was to help all human beings reach their full potential through love and nurturing care. And I couldn't have known at the beginning that I was going to end up here, but I just was like, okay, still that's the vision. So how can I make sure I've got the capacity to actually have the vision? Well, I need to be able to look after myself, my family. I need to take, a slower path. And so, yeah, that's what I honoured. So I think it's just honouring yourself, your mission, and really working out what wealth means to you.
This is Geo. Geo runs a scarf company. Geo doesn't see the need for telecoms. Everybody uses mobiles now. But can a mobile really be a business phone? Geo is having coffee with a client, Gabby. Well, actually, Geo prefers acacia leaf tea. But what happens when someone calls? It could be a big new deal. Surely it would be rude to take the call? But many people hate leaving messages. They may just call a competitor instead. What can Geo do? The answer is simple. Turn the mobile into a business phone. With the Go Giraffe app, Geo can quickly transfer the call. Or, before the meeting, Geo can simply use the app to divert calls. No more missed calls, lost deals, or unhappy customers. Turn your mobile into a business phone today. Go Giraffe.
One of the reasons I was so excited, obviously, to get you on was exactly the tagline of the podcast is "Help the world to see success differently," right? And it's one of the reasons that I find it so fascinating, because I was certainly, and I still think, unfortunately, in society as a whole, we measure someone's success based around their financial status, especially within business. That's that. But what you're talking about there, what is real wealth, is you going, I'm going to have 6 weeks off with my kids when I'm here. That's real wealth. Having the choice to be able to go, I'm creating a business that's around me doing what lights me up and gives me joy and fulfillment and happiness. And that's not based necessarily on a financial status, because you could have worked those 6 weeks when the kids were, and I'm going to grow the business a little bit more, and I'm going to keep doing this, and it's going to grow maybe faster than it. But where does that? Have you then got that relationship with your kids that you want? How many people have sat opposite me, multi-millionaires, and who have gone and looked back and go, amazing what they've achieved in business, but actually I look back and I wasn't around for the kids, I wasn't around for the things that really matter. You can't turn that clock back, can you? Yeah,
I mean, I think that also I changed my lifestyle to meet what I wanted in my business, because again, I wanted to give my energy to my business and my kids. So for me, I did move from a really large house into a smaller house because I wanted to have more time and more energy to be able to give to the things that mattered to me. So, there was a certain amount of sacrifice or giving up, if you like, but it wasn't, because what I was receiving was exactly what I wanted. But I had to give up. I had a very lovely house, on the best road in the town I was living. We didn't really go on holiday for about 5 years, but in that time, other amazing things happened. Every day was holiday, because in essence I could just be with the kids and have the lifestyle I wanted. So that's why it's really funny, actually, with the bank holiday that's just gone past. Everyone's like, oh, it's bank holiday, I get all this time off. I'm like, every day's bank holiday for me. I don't get excited about bank holidays, because every day feels like I get to choose. And I think that's the real wealth of entrepreneurship, is the freedom to be able to choose what you want. That gives me the tingles.
Talk to you. I really wanted to touch on that. Again, we mentioned a little bit about obviously your story at the beginning, and and a lot of obviously what you teach is all about the beginning of life, right? And talk to us a little bit about the 1,001 days and why that period is so important. What is it about that to help people find their full potential as they get older. Talk to us about that.
So this is so important. I'm glad you asked me
Yeah.
this because this is what I love to talk about.
Yeah.
So science and research tells us there's a critical window of the first 1001 days from conception to 2. So in the past we kind of thought, there's a famous quote like, give me the child at 7 and I'll show you the man. Now we know it's actually pretty much from conception to 2. In fact, some people say it's the first 60 days of life. 60 days of life, which profoundly affects your brain architecture and your structure of your emotional intelligence and things like that. So in that period, what we know is that, obviously we're born with a set of genes. Everyone has their own unique blueprint, but how that expresses is due to the environment in which you're growing. So, that's the seed. So you're the seed, you're planted into the soil of your family, of community, and that actually activates your potential. So if you are in a loving, nurturing environment, you're going to flourish and grow. If you're in soil which is toxic, which there's a lot of situations where children are born into really difficult situations, not necessarily the fault of the parents, but like addictions or violence or war or trauma. Look what's happening in the world right now. If you're a baby being born in certain parts of the world, like what your potential being born into that environment is going to be restricted. But the great thing is, as human beings, we have the power to switch into nurturing care and love to the capacity that we have. And obviously, some people's capacity to love and care is going to be less because of the way they were parented or their own trauma. So it's not to judge or shame or make parents feel guilty. It's to make them aware that, you're a gardener, really, and your family is the soil, and when your child comes into that soil, you just to do your best to shower it with all of the love that you possibly could, which is available to all of us, to in different capacities. That's what helps us biologically reach our full potential, because we're less stressed, so we learn better, we sleep better, we digest our food when we're relaxed. As a baby, if we're on alert because we're stressed or we're fearful, it stops up the brain connections being made so rapidly, and it also affects your sleeping patterns, your diet, just like adults. This is the thing. I think we need to start looking at babies as human beings from the beginning, because there's a lot of strange philosophies around babies that just wouldn't stack up in adult life. If you had a sleeping problem, I would not be training you to sleep. I wouldn't be having certain regimes or routines to get you to go to sleep. I'd be talking to you about why you can't sleep, or, maybe helping you get to sleep by cuddling you, or, just creating an environment that's conducive to that. Whereas so much in the baby industry is about control. My baby's a problem because it can't sleep, or it can't do this, or it keeps crying, or whatever. Well, we just don't act like that towards humans. It's a hangover from years and years of ideas around babies that that babies aren't, that their mental health is not connected to adult mental health. Whereas, of course, it is. Where does our adult mental health come from? It's got to be infant mental health. So the focus has to be on infant mental health, and that's the first 1001 days. I could literally talk about this forever, so you better stop me.
No, but this is fascinating. I'm really keen, because you're right, there is that period around sort of, I guess, like you say, controlled crying, where you try. So you're saying that could be potentially a negative for children if they were to be in that situation.
Well, it's really about honouring a child's needs. So when a child is crying, they're just communicating that they need something. So in my book, if you were crying here, I would come over and say, "Hey, are you okay? What do you need?" I wouldn't leave you to cry. I wouldn't just shut the door and say, "Oh, you'll sort yourself out." I'd be genuinely concerned and about your well-being. And some people suggest that controlled crying, is a good way to settle babies, but often babies just stop crying because they're exhausted, because they've cried so much that they just fall asleep. So they kind of falling asleep a bit marinated in stress hormones and then sleeping in that for a bit. You know, I mean, there are lots of studies that show that children who are in orphanage situations, children that are exposed to toxic stress, you know, go on to have physical and emotional issues later on in life. There's a whole body of research. But again, you know, if anyone's listened to this and you've done controlled crying, don't shame or judge yourself. Just take this as a moment of awareness, just to check in and say, you know, how does that feel? And if that was the right thing for you, that's always the right thing for you. It's just the awareness of, like, what happens if we look at it from a baby's perspective rather than at the moment it's a lot of adults expecting babies to be a certain way, whereas if we turned it the other way and said, this is a baby just meeting the world, what are they experiencing from us? You know, they just want to be close to us. They just want to love us. You know, they're in love with us.
It's really interesting. I find this fascinating because especially, I guess, look, we had twins. It was really, it's really tough. They were both quiet at the same time. You go through. And I guess there's certain elements of it where, because I think I've heard you talk. You spoke about, obviously it's the importance as well is to look after ourselves as parents as well, isn't it? And so sometimes we've got to, again, back to business and all the other stuff. To be the best version of ourselves, be the best parent we can be, that sometimes we've got to put ourselves first, look after ourselves to be able to give them that love and attention. And if that's control crying or whatever that looks like, that period, it's just like you said, I get, as you just alluded to there, it's trying to whatever the best decision for you at that time.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I had 3 children under 3.5.
Wow.
So, you know, I'm not saying this from kind of an ivory tower going, you know.
Cool. Wow,
I mean, I haven't had twins. Twins is like, you know, respect.
but we always say this, like, it's all, we only know what we know. Right? Like, I always say, at least with twins, we did have them and they're at the same time, so they're going to do the same thing. And then they get to that point where they do sleep and they're okay. And we go, oh, we've done it all right. Whereas if you have one and then you're back into it again. You've done that three
well, that was a bit like, I was like literally pregnant for like in every year for 5 years with 3 children and 3.5. So it was wild. But I think that this is where it comes back to. The reason why parents are often struggling is because we're parenting in isolation, which I touched on in my TED talk as well. Sure. We're not designed to parent on our own. You know, only about sort of 200 years ago, we were doing something called allo parenting, where parenting is shared between 5 or 6 people in the community. Now, that would have been, say, like, you know, the fact that your auntie lived around the corner or your nan was across the road. You know, we just don't live very close to our relatives anymore just because of the way society has developed. So a lot of people are finding themselves in their house on their own, and that is really hard. Like, social isolation is one of the most like damaging things to our mental health. So that's why part of the medicine of Blossom and Berry is, as well as the what we're teaching, which is the importance of nurturing touch for your baby, is come out into community and be seen and heard, because we know that you need love as well. Otherwise you can't give love to your baby. So it's definitely a double message. You cannot have one without the other. It's unrealistic to expect parents to be completely able to give and support if they're not receiving and being supported. So I think that's a really strong message, because and it adds, you're right, that even I think from my upbringing, I look back, like we grew up in Dad, we was talking about it the other day actually, about we grew up in like a cul-de-sac, so but like all the parents all knew each other. All the kids, there was kids of a similar age. I've got an older brother, so he had a group of his, and everyone would go in each other's houses. It was a community. Definitely,
right? And that's definitely got lost a lot over the years. I'm 45 now, but that's definitely not so much the case these days. So you haven't necessarily got that support network around you, especially like, I mean, for me and my wife, Kate, we moved to Brighton, only from Essex, but still we didn't have people around the corner to rely on, like parents and stuff to rely on. So you feel potentially a little bit isolated when you've not got that community. So for me, it'd be, I'd love to, where we are now in Saltdean, I've talked to a few of the parents there and trying to build a little community, because it would be great to have that. I'd love my kids to grow up in that sort of environment like I did, and I think that has been that has been lost a little bit over the years, isn't it?
I mean, that's where it can come back to nature again. All we need to do is say, right, once a month on a Sunday, everyone goes for a walk. Yeah. Because there's no cost. It's just one person has to take that initiative to start to build it. I mean, you're the king of networking, so
I'm on it.
Exactly. So this is why I think nature as well, it's accessible to everybody. And it's kind of around us in some form or the other, like the beach, here to go down the beach or on the downs or whatever. So I think it just takes that one person to be bold enough to just invite one other person, and then that person. I mean, you know this from what you do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is why I really believe the principles of entrepreneurship and any relationship in life is the same. Let's stop putting entrepreneurship as this thing that you need to learn outside of yourself. You're in it every day in every relationship. So it makes it much more accessible. If you can have a relationship with someone, you can have a business, basically.
I love it. Look, I would say, I look at any business I've grown or whatever I've done, it's all been about relationships and building relationships with people, and whether it's connection through a podcast, whether it's an event, or through whatever it is, it's generally around. And because whatever you're doing, service, products, whatever it is, people will buy it from people, and if you can have that ability to build a relationship and have a conversation, I think that's got to be the biggest skill, right?
It is, yeah. And I mean, that is even what's happening, it doesn't matter which technology you use, social media or whatever, it's still relationships. I mean, why do we have influencers? Because people are investing their time and energy into a person. So I think, to lift the veil on what is business, what is entrepreneurship, it's just a relationship where
I love that.
I think it's about service. It's like finding out, okay, what's my medicine? How do I give it to somebody else? And then you just start like that. Like anyone here now can activate a business with what they love to do if they choose to do so.
I love that. And what just in regards to, I guess some parents may be listening to what you're saying, and maybe because there is that thing as well, isn't it, where you become a parent and you think, it's going to be the most magical thing, and it actually can be really tough and isolating, all them things. What advice do you give to parents, and I guess your teachers, and what you sort of teach in relation to how, if you are in at a time where you feel you're not connecting or you're not bonding, and you don't feel like that type of connection that you thought would just be a given, what sort of advice do you give then, or what do you talk about?
So there's just one word, which is my magic word for any of the situations, which is just compassion. You just got to be compassionate to yourself, basically when we're suffering, and it can be loss, becoming a parent, you've got to let go of all of your old versions of you, can be your job, your friends, your time to yourself. It's like a death, and it's not talked about like that. There's all this excitement about what's happening now, but not a lot of time to actually grieve the fact that you've just lost the old you. So that can cause a lot of suffering, and then what tends to happen is we then judge ourselves and say, I shouldn't be feeling like that, because I should be feeling really happy because I've got this baby and how lucky I am, whereas actually inside you're like, but I really liked it when I could lay in until 11 o'clock in the morning as well. And the thing is, you can have both those emotions. You can have the sadness and the grief and the gratitude at the same time by holding compassion for yourself and just saying, I know you feel like that, and it's okay. I still love you like yourself, because I'm a human being, and it's not a linear path. And that same compassion, then, if you're holding the vibration of compassion, it's more easily offered to your baby. So when your baby wakes you up for the 8th time in the middle of the night, and part of you is like, please, will you just go to sleep? You're like, but compassion is, my baby's waking up because they need something. They're obviously kind of experiencing some kind of suffering. So I'm going to come in and give my baby love. And that's what compassion is, So that would be, it sounds easy, and actually it is easy, but it's also really hard because we have to drop into our hearts and have a different mindset of not judgment. You know, it's like compassion and judgment, I think, are on two ends of the scale. So easy to judge your baby for not sleeping through the night, judge yourself for wanting to go outside and have a glass of wine or something, and all of those things. But just allow it. Just allow it. It's just, it won't, it's a fact. It's just at that moment, that's how you feel. It doesn't define you or your baby. It's just something coming up. Oh, okay, that's interesting. Okay, right, and then it normally goes away.
And I guess what I take from that is so much of it, and again, this. So much of what we're talking about can be related to everything in life and in business, especially about self-talk, right? What we sometimes, I often say to the kids about if they ever say something negative towards themselves, you wouldn't say that to a friend, would you? You wouldn't speak to someone in that way. Don't talk to yourself like that. But we're all guilty of it, aren't we? It's easy to get into that mindset, isn't it? Like you said, so much of it's about mindset, isn't it? You can get into that thing where actually the self-talk is. If it's negative, that's going to have an impact. Whereas if you can talk to yourself with compassion and love, it's easier then to get over that and give that out, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a practice. It's never ending. It's not like I don't know anybody who is able to hold that vibration all the time about everything. But it's just the notice. It's the awareness. I think that's what I'm trying to help parents just become aware of their feelings and not be frightened of them. That just because you're feeling something, it doesn't define you as a person. It's a feeling, it's an emotion. It comes through, it tells you something. You can think, oh, that's interesting, and then you just let it go, and then another moment comes and something else passes. And I think a lot of the problems are when we get stuck defining ourselves as, I feel bad because I don't like my baby crying. It's okay to not like your baby crying, that's okay. And your baby will stop crying and then you'll come back into harmony again. So it's just that little dance. It's like, rather than it being this linear path, it's just a kind of chaotic dance that you're doing. And then you just feel a lot more relaxed.
I think, again, once you accept, I remember Toby, Toby Moore, he's been on the podcast, we talked, and he said it was a really good thing he was mentioning. He goes, actually, my life is chaos, and that's fine. And he goes, I've accepted that. And once you sort of almost accept, same as being an entrepreneur, being a business, and being a parent, all of them things are chaotic. And actually, you just go, I've just accepted that's who I am and how it is, and that's fine. I'm okay with the chaos, and because that's part of the life and part of this journey that we're on, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I would choose that. I'd choose the magic of mystery 10 times over the. I mean, like if you knew what was going to happen at the end, like you just it wouldn't be as exciting. Like when you go and watch a movie, that's the point. Like the movie's exciting because you're like, what's going to happen next?
And this is why it's so much. One of the biggest lessons, I guess, learning from doing so many podcasts is the fact of how important it is to enjoy the journey. Right? Because we can set goals and things we want to achieve and targets we've got and all X, Y, and Z. But if you're not enjoying the journey to get there, then what's the point in it? Because I guarantee when you get to that top of that mountain, there's not that euphoria moment anyway, and what's it all been for,
But then you look up and there's another mountain.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
yeah.
Right, and I'm at the bottom of this one. I'm getting to the top of that one.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
Look, we touched on there just a bit with parents and sort of struggles. Talk to me about over 2 decades of running a business. I'm often keen to share some of the challenges that we face as well on the podcast. Talk to me about it. Over 20 years of running a business. Talk to me about some of the challenging times maybe that you've faced, how you've overcome them, maybe what you've learned.
Yeah, that's an interesting question because I've never hit a real roadblock in my business. I think challenging times personally. I was married for 23 years. I got divorced about 3.5, 4 years ago now. That was very challenging because of my values and my family. And, I very much loved my husband and my husband really loved me, but we were just going in different directions. So it wasn't aligned. That knocked me. So that it wasn't so much that something happened in my business, something happened to me. And because I am my business, it affected my ability to show up. it affected my confidence as well. I was like in a lot of grief, so I couldn't focus. You know, my general kind of energy levels were a lot lower. So I think my business, honestly, has been my best friend for like 20 years. My business just walks beside me. Like, tuck it up in bed at night. I love my business. I love my business so much. I really, really do. Like, there's nothing about my business that I don't like.
You can tell the passion every time, like on the TEDx stage, sitting opposite me now. When we had an interview the day before, it just blew.
I love it. But you know, life happens. That was a biggie. That was a real biggie. So that was probably a big challenge. And then last year as well, I had an accident. I broke my foot and I couldn't walk for 3 months. And again, that grounded me. But interestingly, it allowed me the time and space to really reflect and contemplate on a few things that weren't in alignment. So as difficult as that was, it actually helped me. So yeah, I think it's been probably more personal challenges than actual like things within Blossom and Berry, because Blossom and Berry just really, you know, some people say to me, oh, you know, your business model is really weird, like you should have a license fee, because then, you know, on the 1st of January when all your teachers come through, you'd be like bringing in all this money or whatever. But I've set it up in such a way that it makes me smile when I think about like the love that literally flows through it, and I feel like it's very unique to me. So it's been kind to me. My business has been very kind to me. So yeah.
And with that time, like, obviously we're going through a divorce at that period as well. Was you did you throw yourself into work after that? Was it your business that helped you through that, or what did you sort of?
I sort of that, you know, that pretty much knocked me out for quite a long time. Yeah, to be honest. Because it was one of my core values. You know, one of my values is family. So it was a hard one to recover from. And then it was COVID. And in COVID, to be honest, I went into like massive service. So I had like free mentorship every week, one whole day. I just did free mentorship. So that was a little bit of you know, I always wanted to help people, but it probably was also helping me as well, because it gave me a focus. But then also out of that time, then tree babies came, because as I said, we couldn't gather together in inside. So there were some gifts in that period. But, you know, like I just say, you know, even I'd say after 4 years of being divorced, I feel like pretty normal now. But I'd say divorce is a kind of as tricky one as death, you know, to get over, to be honest, especially when it's a long marriage. So I'd say just about now, like the last 4 years has been a little bit tricky. I feel more like my old self again now.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. And what sort of, I guess, what got you, what was the resilient side of it? Is that, again, so much of it, I guess, comes from, like you mentioned earlier, about growing up and some of that stuff that happened when you was younger. Do you feel that has helped you through this last few years, that resilience that you maybe built from a young age? Or
I think it's just made me take everything, like be more present, like enjoy everything whilst you can, and celebrate what you have. And also it's taught me a lot about the cycle of like life and death, going back to nature. Like in nature, you've got to have death to bring new life. You know, it's what goes, you know, it goes into the soil, it creates new life. And so that's been a good lesson for me about letting go of things that are not in alignment with grace, you know, with grace. So there is, I just don't believe that you can separate any of these things that happen to you. You know, it's all in the mix, and it infuses everything, which is why, you know, it's so interesting to listen to people's stories, because when you listen to the stories, you just realise, wow, that's a bit messy, and kind of like, I thought it was just me, but actually, you know, it's the sum total of all the parts that makes the story, isn't it? So yeah.
Look, absolutely. I guess one of the things for me found so fascinating, on my t-shirt says everyone has a story to tell, and I believe that. I just think that, and there's so much we can learn about life, about business, about ourselves and everything, just by sharing stories and having that ability to, because there's so much that people can resonate with. I mean, how many people are possibly listening to your story and being able to resonate with that and what you've gone through, and then use you, I guess, as that inspiration to look at all the the amazing stuff you've achieved from a business point of view and from everything, but ultimately, I guess, from your mission and your message is such a powerful one, right? And trying to create a world that, I guess, that we all want to live in, right? that comes from love and compassion, and that's the place we want to be, right?
But you know what? We can do that. I know that is possible.
Do you believe it?
100%. You just got to start at the beginning. You get a new chance with every 380,000 babies born every day. That's humanity renewing itself. We've got the best chance in the world. You've got hope right there, So this is why, if we switch to the beginning and we start investing all our time, then that's the answer. The answer is not 50 years down the line. It's right there at the beginning, and that's why it's so powerful. And that's why I even with all the things that are going on in the world right now, which are a lot for people to hold. If you watch the news, it can be scary and horrific. But there is hope. There's hope because there is a new generation coming through. We can tell them, okay, you don't want to do this. Maybe or say, this is what I did, have a listen and tell me what you think. Do you want to do this or not? Rather than tell them what to do. Telling stories about what someone else has done, so they can be empowered to choose their own story of where they want to go. I absolutely believe it, and that's why I'm so excited about it, because every day I get another go. Another 350,000 babies that someone in my community might be able to reach out to. This is why I do global work, and I have my charitable projects in Malawi, and we're actually starting something up in Palestine as well at the moment. So, it's just any time anyone comes to me and says, I've got an idea, Gayle, there's children that I can help, I'm always fully available for that, always.
Tell us a little bit more about your charitable work. What? Because you set up a foundation 2014, was it? You got involved in charity. Talk to me about it.
This is a funny story. I'll make it short. But when I was 40, I decided I wanted to give back for all of the things that I'd received. So I tried to find a charity to help me set up projects where I could teach, say, for example, orphanage staff about why love matters for babies, so that the babies got more connection and care, because the studies show that babies in orphanage settings really are the ones that have the most kind of a deprivation in terms of touch and connection. Couldn't find one. Went to a festival and bought a pair of magic sunglasses called Love Specs. I told you this was a random story, which they people who a lot of people in Brighton who know me through Happy Startup School and that they know me for Love Specs because I've sort of sold them and stuff like that. So they're magic sunglasses that when you put them on and you look at light, everything turns to love hearts. Anyway, they were so amazing. I was like, who has made these? So I Googled on the side and I found out it was for a charity called Love Support Unite. So I emailed them. I said, these things are wicked. They're I've had the most fun. Can you tell me what you do? They were based in Malawi. And I said, I'm trying to find an orphanage to help me to partner with, to train the staff so the babies can have more nurturing care. And they said, we know one called the Ministry of Hope in Lilongwe. When do you want to come? So I was like, oh my God, right, this is actually happening now. And it was just the stars aligned. It was the week that was available for me to go. And so before I knew it, I was on a plane, literally going to Malawi. At that point, when I landed in Lilongwe, I thought to myself, okay, Gayle, this is really random. You've gone from buying Love Specs at a festival. 3 months later, you're landing in, I hadn't really ever heard of Malawi, to be honest, before. Yeah. If you're listening and you don't know, it's in East Africa. And then I met the two founders, and I literally fell in love with them straight away. And it was supposed to be one trip. And it ended up, well, I'm a trustee now, it's ended up being 10 years of different projects. So we've built a nursery for sort of under threes. We've got women we've trained to be baby massage teachers who hold space for other baby massage teachers, worked at special needs centres and things like that. So that was really unexpected. But very destined, you know. And again, my value is love. My charity is called Love Support Unite, and we fundraise with love specs. You know, my message is love creates love. Like, you know,
there's a lot of alignment.
Exactly. I'm
there,
like, okay, you were aware, all those emails that I sent to all those charities, and I just kept getting no, and then a pair of sunglasses at a festival, 10 years of having my own charity. So this is what this is. You've got to just trust. You've got to trust the process. That a no, sometimes a hard no, is a brilliant thing, because it means you're going to get a hell yes somewhere else down the line. You just got to not take the no personally.
Love that.
I should have bought them. I wish I had them.
I need some of these glasses.
They're so good. They're so good.
Well, I want to touch on, we were just talking about the connection side and the starting again and every day that we can start. From what you described and your beliefs, and certainly that aligns more with my values and what I believe in, this is a world over here that I believe that we can create, same as you. I think amazing, and these are the conversations I love to have with it. On the other hand, we've got this other thing over here where we could talk about technology and where AI is, and maybe the lack of connection and social media and all that we're going. What are your thoughts on, because there's the potential with this that we lose community, connection and love, and this world over here we don't get to. What's your thoughts on where now?
Well, I think technology is great as a tool. It's just we're getting it in balance, you know, because my business is an online business. So without technology, I wouldn't be able to have the impact that I have in the world. So I think technology is fantastic. I think I've met so many friends through social media. Is when it's just your awareness of how you're using it, you know. And I mean, if you're a parent and you're using your phone as a babysitting tool, that's not necessarily going to be the best thing for you and your baby, because you're missing out on that really juicy connection that then travels with you for the whole of your life. I mean, one of the things that I am a little bit, maybe a bit controversial on, is I do believe that babies being born into the world right now would believe that in humans' hands are black boxes that are glued to their hands, you know, which is basically a phone. Because you've got to remember, this generation, I can remember where there was no phones. So for me, it's like there's life and then there was a phone. Now it's like there's just phones, and adults, humans, spend most of their time looking at their phones. So then when, you know, people say, oh, children are on their phones too much, well, where did they pick that one up from? You know, so that's the thing I think we've got to watch, is not, you know, in a family now, I think there's a family of 4 and then there's 4 phones that are part of that family. And it's about moderating that. So one of the things that we teach with tree babies is we have a mantra, which is from screen to green for 15. So just 15 minutes outside in nature, put down your screen, go out in nature. In that 15 minutes, it reboots and restores your nervous system. So even if you're starting with that as a daily practice with your child, you know, get out in nature, screen to green to 15, easy to remember. It's just a really powerful way to get balance back. You know, like everything in life, it's good to have a little bit of everything in life. I definitely believe, like, that's one of the great things, that you can play with all these things. But it's the dependency. Dependency is
because when we
tricky.
listen, it's like holding a mirror. Because the one thing I know I'm guilty of sometimes is exactly that. Like, when we run a business and we live our lives on our phones, right? That's what everything's on there. So you go, and the amount of times you go. Again, big lesson I've like trying to be. If there's one thing I'm trying to be a better parent at, better person, is trying to be more present. This enables me to do it. I like sitting and having these type of conversations. I cherish, because there isn't any other distraction. It's just me and you in a room having a conversation, and I love that. when I'm at home with the kids, and I'm trying to be, when I'm there, be as present as I can. But of course I'm guilty, as I'm sure many of the listeners on here are, where just 1 second and you're doing that. But for me, I'm half Greek Cypriot, so sitting around a table and eating's a big thing for us. As you can probably tell. And that, our one rule is definitely no phones at the table, no matter what's going on at work or anything. I even leave it in the other room so that I can't do that and that. But I am still guilty with the other stuff. But I love that.
From screen to green for 15. Yeah, it's an easy one to remember.
It is good. That is really
and
good.
I think it's just about just having boundaries. I mean, the thing is, we break our own boundaries as adults. We say, I'm not going to do it, and then we do. Because and to be fair to us, that's because the apps and everything are designed so we get addicted to them. So there's a bigger problem in that. I mean, my friend just recently bought a phone safe. She locked her phone in there for 2 weeks because she knew she was going on holiday with her kids, and she left it at home, and she said it was amazing. Wow. She just said she just rediscovered. She felt like she had so much more time because every time you pick up your phone and check, you think, oh, it's only a minute. But if you added all those up, I think it's something like most adults are about 5 hours looking at their phone. How long are you looking at your kids? How long are you looking at your partner? Are you looking at your partner for 5 hours? Probably not many people, So it's an interesting one.
How are you at switching off, like when you've got a business and stuff? Are you able to switch off?
I have a lot of WhatsApp messages, so I kind of do message on WhatsApp quite a lot. Social media, I'm not. So I have sort of little bits during the day. I've got a team though, so it's easier for me now because I've got people fielding stuff for me. And I mean, I lived in Goa for a month earlier this year, and to be honest, then I just completely forgot what my name was, let alone that I had a phone. I mean, it was just such an amazing experience that I kind of was like, I really want to be here fully present, and I wasn't on my phone so much at all.
Wow, that's amazing.
So yeah, I mean, I'm like everybody else. I have a phone, that's why I'm here, like we've been talking today, and like we'll be sharing this on YouTube. Like if we didn't have these tools are gifts to entrepreneurship if we use them correctly.
No, I agree. Well, look, we're coming towards the end, and it's been fascinating. It really has changed. Thank you so much for coming on. As always, I'd like to finish off. The tagline is helping the world to see success differently. So I ask everyone, if you can, just define what does success mean to you?
Oh, that's a hard one. Well, I think I'd probably go. The overarching thing is, my mentorship business is called Love Millions, and for me, that is success. Is that if I can look back on my life and think that I've loved millions of people, which through Blossom and Berry we have touched the hearts of millions of babies. I want to touch the hearts of billions of babies. I want to just take it as far as I can. So for me, success is how much you loved, how much you loved yourself through the process of being an entrepreneur, how much you served other people, how much good stuff can you share with the world. That's what success is for me.
I love that. That's why we're here, right? To love and be loved.
It is. Absolutely.
I mentioned to you offline, obviously we do our top table events, we do like our conversation cards. Mm-hmm. And one of the ones that come up recently, I've asked quite a few people, if you were on your deathbed and you could leave one lesson, what would that be?
Well, this isn't my lesson, but this is a lesson from my teacher that I try and live by. So this is Ram Dass. Do you know him? So he says, love everybody and tell the truth. And I think that that is a hard one for human beings, but it's an aspirational, stretchy one to work towards. And if you get into trouble, just go back to that where, we're all just humans. We're all just trying to work it out. We all started off as those babies. So love everyone and be authentic, tell the truth. And then you're always centered in your values. So yeah, it's not my lesson, but it's one I live my life by.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been absolutely amazing. And I wish you every success on your global mission. And I know, hopefully, we will create this world that we were talking about, and not this one over here. So, thank you for your time again. And that, as they say, is a wrap.